Good morning. The Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation is called to order. Welcome to our witnesses. Thank you for joining us this morning. In the last 2 years, AI has brought the United States and the world to a critical inflection point. AI may be a technology as transformative as the internet, or even more so. It has unleashed a new global industrial revolution with the potential to unlock opportunities that improve our quality of life, create jobs, and stimulate economic growth. The country that leads in AI will shape the 21st century global order. As a matter of economic security, as a matter of national security, America has to beat China in the AI race. China has made AI central to its national strategy, and China aims to lead the world in AI by 2030, investing heavily in AI adoption across industries like manufacturing and defense. In this race, the United States is facing a fork in the road. Do we go down the path that embraces our history of entrepreneurial freedom and technological innovation, or do we adopt the command and control policies of Europe? I would suggest that Congress draw on the lessons we can learn from the dawn of the internet. In the early 1990s, Washington embraced the internet and explicitly adopted a style of regulation that was intentionally and decisively light touch. Congress chose to deregulate under the Telecommunications Act of 1996, while President Clinton pursued tariff agreements and treaties that protected America's intellectual property and technological exports. Further, in 1998, Congress enacted a 10-year internet tax moratorium so that state laws wouldn't balkanize and stymie the promise of e-commerce. The results of these decisions were extraordinary.
I made a lot of money.
By 2000, the United States has recorded 5 straight years of historic highs in productivity gains and investment growth. Hundreds of thousands of new jobs were created, and the United States became a top tech exporter with massive sums of private investment pouring into the U.S. digital economy. By contrast, EU countries pursued a series of heavy-handed regulations that proved enormously costly. In 1993, the United States and Europe had economies virtually identical in size. Today, the American economy is more than 50% larger than Europe's. The drivers of that are tech and the shale revolution. Those two comprise virtually the entirety of that massive growth over Europe. According to one EU Commission report, only 6% of global AI startup funding flows to EU firms. 6%. That is 1/10 of the amount that is going to American companies. The report directly blames this yawning chasm on the EU's nasty regulatory approach. And yet, the Biden administration, for inexplicable reasons, tried to align AI policy with the EU to adopt their failed policies. President Biden's sweeping AI executive order, the longest executive order in American history, cast AI as dangerous and opaque, laying the groundwork for audits, for risk assessments, and regulatory certifications. Biden's approach inspired similar efforts in state legislatures across the country, threatening to burden startups, developers, and AI users with heavy compliance costs. Some of my colleagues suggest that a friendlier version of the Biden approach makes sense. They want a testing regime to guard against AI, quote, discrimination, and have government agencies provide, quote, guidance documents seemingly something out of Orwell, that will usher in what they call best practices, as if AI engineers lack the intelligence to responsibly build AI without the bureaucrats. Many in the industry, foolishly, have supported such paternalism. Harmful regulations take many forms. Biden's misguided midnight AI diffusion rule on chips and model weights would have crippled American tech companies' ability to sell AI to the world. The Biden plan would have handed over key markets to China. We should want foreign countries, particularly our allies, to buy American. I vocally opposed this rule for months, and indeed the ranking member and I together urged the Biden administration not to adopt it. And I'm very pleased that President Trump has now confirmed he plans to rescind it. All of this busybody bureaucracy, whether Biden's industrial policy on chip exports or industry and regulator-approved guidance documents, is a wolf in sheep's clothing. To lead in AI, the United States cannot allow regulation, even the supposedly benign kind, to choke innovation or adoption. American dominance in AI depends on two factors: innovation and adoption. Innovation drives breakthroughs and global competitiveness. Adoption ensures that these tools empower American workers and businesses, enabling the United States to become the world's leading adopter and exporter of AI. Thankfully, President Trump has largely reversed Biden's misguided AI agenda. In fact, I think AI was a sleeper issue in this last elections. Americans wanted to see President Trump and Republicans, and indeed all senators, champion AI policies focused on innovation and adoption. The contrast has been astounding. This year, there have been over $1 trillion of new AI projects, including major investments in Texas like the CoreWeave data center in Plano and the $500 billion Project Stargate in Abilene by OpenAI and Oracle and others. Adopting a light-touch regulatory style for AI will require Congress to work alongside the president, just as Congress did with President Clinton. We need to advance legislation that promotes long-term AI growth and innovation. That's why I will soon release a new bill that creates a regulatory sandbox for AI, modeled on the approach taken by Congress and President Clinton at the dawn of the internet, that will remove barriers to AI adoption, prevent needless state overregulation, and allow the AI supply chain to rapidly grow here in the United States. That's how we'll accelerate economic growth, secure U.S. dominance in AI, and beat China. And with that, I turn to the Ranking Member Cantwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this hearing, and welcome to the witnesses before us, Mr. Altman, Dr. Su, Mr. Integrator, and Mr. Smith. It's a great pleasure to have all of you here, but it's especially prideful moment for the Pacific Northwest to have Mr. Smith and Mr. Altman here, both representing an open AI approach. By that I mean an approach where we want to win against China and a closed system by making sure that what is developed here in the United States and around the globe is an architecture where the United States wins and is open. To do that, we need to focus in winning on computing power, on algorithms, and on robust data sources. All of that will be key. Personally, I believe a continued investment in NSF helps in all of those areas as a good public-private partnership with the industry that's represented here today. I'm so proud that we passed the CHIPS and Science Act, because the CHIPS and Science Act also set a foundation for investing in the United States of America and bringing more of the supply chain back to the United States of America to build on a future leadership that we already have, I believe, in the computing power. But we also need to understand that we have to move forward on the CHIPS Act, like the University of Washington $10 million grant on multi-design sets for chips, the very large-scale integrated designs I'm sure that Dr. Su will tell us about today. But the fact that the United States has to continue to lead on the future designs and the implementation of that also requires us to be very smart about data centers, about sources of electricity, and how we're going to build that supply that could be up to 12% of electricity demand in the very near future. So how do we do that? I've noticed in each of your testimonies you all explain this, but I'm also very proud that Microsoft has already signed an agreement with one company, Fusion Energy in Everett, Washington, for a power source supply. Maybe Mr. Altman in his testimony will talk about this, but that they hope to get very near future energy source from that. So clearly the United States leading on electricity and development. So Mr. Smith, very much appreciate in your testimony the accentuation on the fact that the United States of America needs hundreds of thousands of new electricians, something we should all want to get behind. The fact that having electricity and the electricians and the data source centers here in the United States and in other places will be key. While I want to see us move forward, as the chairman said, we signed a letter saying we needed a broader support for export controls. I want to be clear. Export controls are not a trade strategy. They are not a back pocket issue that the President of the United States whips out in trade negotiations. We are going to move fast because we are going to set standards. I believe those standards should be encouraging very broad distribution of U.S. manufactured and made AI chips and technology, and that we're asking our partners overseas to comply with the rules that we establish, things like making sure that there is no circumvention of the supply that somehow gets into China's hands, making sure that we have access and making sure that we can verify on that, and also making sure that U.S. data companies and cloud-based companies are allowed to be in that market. We should not be going to markets overseas only to have them tell us that organizations with cloud services from the U.S. would not be allowed. This, I believe, would be a robust initiative on getting U.S. AI chips and U.S. AI open systems dominated around the globe. Why do we need to move fast? We need to move fast because if we don't, we are looking at another Huawei, another instance where the United States is behind and also saying we should tear out this system that now we don't like for lots of reasons and backdoor policies. So I'm all for winning. That is why we passed the CHIPS and Science Act. I'm all for winning, and that is why we have passed 7 bills out of this committee last year that kind of got stuck in the lame duck. I think the chairman of the committee wasn't ready to move forward in negotiations with the House and Senate on those 7 bills. But those bills, a bill between myself and Senator Young on the Institute for Standards, NIST standards, which I think we still need to do. My colleague and I, Moran, on education and scholarships, small business, and the bill by my colleague here, Senators Klobuchar and Thune, which was also related to the NIST standards. So we had an opportunity a year ago to move fast. We didn't do it. So let's do this now. Let's get together and figure this out. The faster the United States moves now, I like this great Paul Romer quote, which was about collaboration is the next phase of innovation. If we don't collaborate here, if we throw down on politics instead of getting the policy right, we won't move fast. Let's allow these people to do what they do best, and let's make sure the United States has the right policies in place so that our open AI standard wins the day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'd now like to introduce our witnesses for today. Each of our witnesses and their companies represent critical parts of the AI infrastructure, hardware, and software supply chain. Our first witness is Sam Altman, the co-founder and CEO of OpenAI. OpenAI is one of the world's most advanced AI companies, known best for its ChatGPT product. Our second witness is Lisa Su, the chair and CEO of Advanced Micro Devices, AMD. AMD develops high-performance processors, graphic chips, and AI accelerators that power artificial intelligence, and Dr. Su is also a Texan. Our third witness today is Michael Intrater, the CEO and co-founder of CoreWeave, an AI hyperscaler. CoreWeave is the world's largest purpose-built AI cloud platform. And our final witness is Brad Smith, the vice chair and president of Microsoft. I believe everyone is familiar with his company. Mr. Altman, you are recognized for your opening statement. If you could turn on the volume.
Sorry about that.
And I do enjoy telling techies how to operate the tech.
Pretty embarrassing that I couldn't figure that out. Anyway, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member Cantwell. Thank you all senators and fellow panelists. It's a real honor to be here. I was here about 2 years ago, and at that time, ChatGPT had recently launched. It was a curiosity in the world. People weren't sure what it was going to mean, what it was going to be used for. Today, we've made significant progress. ChatGPT is used by more than 500 million people a week. I just saw yesterday that according to SimilarWeb, it's now the 5th biggest website on the internet globally, growing very quickly. But most of all, it's being used in really important ways. It's significantly increasing productivity. We hear scientists say they're 2 or 3 times more productive than they could be before. We hear people they're getting medical advice or learning in ways they couldn't before. And it's really, it's no longer this thing that was going to come in the future, but it's here now, and people are really using it. We're very proud to be one of the leaders of this. We're very proud that America is leading in AI so significantly. And I think that's critical. What Senator Cruz said about the importance of innovation in America, and that we have what happened with the internet, we have happen again. I believe this will be at least as big as the internet, maybe bigger. That needs to happen. For that to happen, investment in infrastructure is critical. I believe the next decade will be about abundant intelligence and abundant energy, making sure that America leads in both of those, that we are able to usher in these dual revolutions that will change the world we live in, I think in incredibly positive ways, is critical. I got to go to Abilene, Texas yesterday, where we're building out what will be the largest AI training facility in the world. It's coming along beautifully, super exciting to see. We need a lot more of that. There's a whole sort of AI factory, like a supply chain of energy chips, standing up data centers, building the racks and more. We've got to do that really well in the US so that we can continue to innovate, continue to lead, and continue to sort of shape this revolution. Speaking of that, I was very inspired by what Chairman Cruz said, so I'd like to deviate from script here and tell a story. In my prepared written testimony, I covered the basics, so if it's okay, I'd love to tell you a story. I grew up in St. Louis, and I was a computer nerd. And it was the time of the internet boom, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. We kind of lived in this beautiful old brick house in this suburb of St. Louis, and I lived in the attic, and I had this computer, and I would stay up all night, and I would learn to program, and I got to kind of use the internet, and it was like a crazy time of tons of innovation. All sorts of stuff was happening. It was amazing, and it was all happening here. All the internet companies were in the US. I used a Mac that was built here. I used chips that were started, near where I now live. And I learned about computers. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I can draw a straight line from that experience to founding OpenAI and getting to work on companies like Helion. The spirit of American innovation and support of entrepreneurship. I don't think the internet could have happened anywhere else. And if that didn't happen, I don't think the AI revolution would have happened here. I am a child of the internet revolution. I have the great honor to be one of the many parents of the AI revolution. And I think it is no accident that that's happening in America again and again and again. But we need to make sure that we build our systems and that we set our policy in a way where that continues to happen. I think this is magic. I don't want to live in Europe either. I think America is just an incredible and special thing, and it will not only be the place where the AI revolution happens, but all the revolutions after. I was home visiting St. Louis recently, drove by our old house, and I kind of like, it was at night, and I looked up, and in that like top floor window, the light was on, and I thought, you know, hopefully there's some kid in there staying up late at night playing with ChatGPT, figuring out how he or she is going to start whatever company comes next, and whatever the next thing is after AI will happen here too. That is to me the magic of this country. It's incredibly personally important, and I hope it keeps going. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Dr. Su.
Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, members of the committee, it is a real honor to be here on such an important topic. I'm Chair and CEO of AMD. We are a U.S. headquartered semiconductor company founded 56 years ago, and we build high-performance computing chips for the modern economy. Every day, billions of people rely on our products and services powered by our technologies, but our chips are also extremely important to support the critical missions, including powering defense systems and secure communications, as well as enabling breakthrough scientific research. I have to say our proudest moments, though, are when we see amazing public-private partnerships, and our work in supercomputing is an example of that. Through more than a decade of partnership with the Department of Energy, AMD now powers the two fastest supercomputers in the world, one that is housed at Oak Ridge National Labs that was put into place in 2021, and the other at Lawrence Livermore National Labs that was just recently put into commission late last year. These systems are really critical from a national infrastructure standpoint and solve many large research issues as well as national security and scientific leadership. Now, in terms of AI, there's so much that's been stated about AI. I really want to thank Chairman Cruz and Ranking Member Cantwell for having this hearing. I think it is a wonderful opportunity to talk about how we win. AI is truly the most transformative technology of our time. The United States leads today, but what I would like to say is it is a race. Leadership is absolutely not guaranteed. It's a global race that will shape the outcome of national security and economic prosperity for many decades to come. Now, maintaining our lead actually requires excellence at every layer of the stack, so I'm really honored to be here with my panelists as well. We have deep partnerships with Microsoft and OpenAI that demonstrate how you need silicon, you need software, you need systems, and really the application layer to be successful. Now, in terms of what to do, I thought about what would be the most important things to say today, and I put them in 5 categories. I think the first, and probably the foremost, is we must continue to run faster. This is a race, and the race does not stand still. Nobody in the world stands still. We lead today because of the bold decisions that we've made and because of the innovation economy that we have. But we need to continue to run faster, and that means ensuring that we have computing available. I think Sam's story about Abilene is an excellent example of how when you allow the computing infrastructure to expand at the rate and pace that the private sector wants, you actually make a tremendous progress. I would also like to mention the importance of open ecosystems. I think open ecosystems are really a cornerstone of U.S. leadership, and that allows, frankly, ideas to come from everywhere and every part of the innovation cycle. It's reducing barriers to entry and strengthening security, as well as creating, frankly, a competitive marketplace for ideas. Third, we are very happy to see the focus on a robust domestic supply chain. For us in the semiconductor world, we used to not get so much attention. Now we get a lot of attention thanks to the importance of chips. And the fact is we need more manufacturing in the U.S. The efforts so far have made good progress, but there's a lot more that can be done, and that should be done in public-private partnership. Fourth, we must invest in talent. Frankly, the United States should be the best place to study AI, to work in AI, to really move forward all of the innovations that we need. And I think, again, this can also be done in significant public-private partnership. And then fifth, of course, in the area of export controls, we totally understand as an industry the importance of national security. And that is, that goes without saying as a U.S. company. But we also want to ensure, as Chairman Cruz and Ranking Member Cantwell stated, it is important to have widespread adoption of U.S. technologies. We lead today because we have the best technology. However, if we're not able to, fully have our technology adopted in the rest of the world, there will be other technologies that will come to play. They may not be as good as we are today, but frankly, usage really spurs innovation. And this is something that we certainly need to work with in public-private partnership. And I would frankly end by saying, like Sam, I had a computer when I was growing up. I grew up in New York. I'm a little older than Sam, so my first computer was a Commodore 64, and then I graduated to the Apple II. But the fact is, this is the best place to do computing innovation in the world. We want it to stay that way with really a very rich and broad ecosystem. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here today.
And I had an Apple II as well with a shoebox of floppy disks, and somehow I ended up taking a wrong turn and ending up in politics instead. Mr. Intrater.
I started out with a VIC-20. Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I am honored to appear alongside my industry colleagues and partners. My name is Michael Intrater. I am the co-founder and CEO of CoreWeave, founded 7 years ago. CoreWeave started, like many innovative ventures, humbly in a garage, experimenting initially with graphics processing units or GPUs for cryptocurrency mining. Recognizing the transformational potential, we pivoted to support powerful AI applications, dramatically scaling the vision and operation. Today, CoreWeave stands at the forefront of America's AI infrastructure revolution, operating more than 30 data centers across 15 states. We manage more than 250,000 GPUs, currently using 360 megawatts of power. Over 2 short years, our revenue has surged by 12,000%, reaching $1.9 billion in 2024. As a result of this progress, CoreWeave became a publicly traded company on March 28th of 2025. CoreWeave's rapid growth is a testimony not only to the technology, but also to the surging global demand for advanced AI infrastructure. Our infrastructure enables American businesses to rapidly translate AI aspirations into impactful economic realities. By empowering companies to accelerate innovation, we're fueling America's competitive edge while improving productivity and prosperity. Modern AI requires specialized infrastructure, purpose-built computing capabilities that surpass traditional cloud computing in scale and performance. Today's general-purpose cloud that was built to support and scale the complexity of AI workloads. We cannot run a 21st century economy on the 20th century's infrastructure. AI workloads involve trillions of simultaneous calculations, demanding unprecedented computing power, advanced cooling systems, cutting-edge chip technology, ultra-high-speed networks, and accelerated storage. Since 2018, the computing power necessary for advanced AI models has multiplied approximately 100,000-fold. At CoreWeave, our facilities symbolize America's great tradition of innovation. Our data centers, built, maintained, and staffed by skilled American workers, embody how modern technology not only stimulates economic growth and enhances national security, but also improves humans' lives. We are at a critical juncture in the global AI competition. The nation that leads in infrastructure will set the global economic agenda and shape human outcomes for decades. Our largest competitor, China, recognizes the stakes and is expending significant resources to strengthen their position. I want to focus on 4 elements of policy that will help determine whether the U.S. secures its leadership role in the AI race. First, strategic investment stability. AI infrastructure is deeply capital intensive and requires a significant level of coordination across industry stakeholders. Stable, predictable policy frameworks, secure supply chains, and regulatory environments that foster innovation are crucial. Policymakers must provide clear and consistent policy and regulations across all jurisdictions that enables long-term investment and rapid scaling of AI technology. Second, energy infrastructure development. To support the rapid deployment of AI infrastructure, America must ensure abundant and affordable supplies of energy. Careful reforms in permitting and regulatory processes are necessary to accelerate infrastructure projects, facilitate more rapid construction, interconnections, and energy for data centers. Third is global market access. Maintaining America's leadership also means ensuring our technology has fair access to global markets. Export controls and trade agreements can be calibrated to both address national security risks and support global diffusion of American AI technology. And finally, public-private partnerships and workforce development. America's unique advantage in the AI race is enhanced by our powerful tradition of public-private partnership. CoreWeave is proud to co-found the New Jersey AI Hub with Microsoft, Princeton University, and the New Jersey Economic Development Initiative. Initiatives like this develop critical work skills, foster innovation, and ensure economies and communities are prepared for the AI-driven future. America stands ready to lead the AI revolution, which will bring enormous benefits. It is a rare moment in time that we must meet. If government, industry, and all affected parties work together, the United States can win this race and seize the vast opportunity ahead of us. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Let me just build on what my three colleagues have said and offer a few thoughts. The first is I just wanted to refer to the chart on this easel that shows the AI tech stack that was also in my written testimony. It makes a simple but I think important point. We're all in this together. If the United States is going to succeed in leading the world in AI, it requires infrastructure, it requires success at the platform level, it requires people who create applications. Interestingly, we at Microsoft get to work with all three of these leaders and their companies. Our success, each of our success, depends on each other's success. And what's true of the four of us is true when you look across the country and around the world at open source developers, people who are building power plants, electricians and pipe fitters who are going to work every single day. So what do we need from the Congress and the country in order to succeed? I think it's three things. I described them in my written testimony. First, as Chairman Cruz said, we need innovation. Innovation will go faster with, as Sam said, more infrastructure, faster permitting, more electricians. We need more innovation fueled, as Ranking Member Cantwell said, by support from our universities and the federal agencies that support basic research across the country, one of this country's crown jewels. We also need, as Chairman Cruz said, faster adoption, what people refer to as AI diffusion. The ability to put AI to work across every part of the American economy to boost productivity, to boost economic growth, to enable people to innovate in their work. And the number one ingredient for that, history shows time and time again, is skilling, investing in education. And finally, we need to export. If America is going to lead the world, we need to connect with the world. We need to remember, I believe always, that as a country, only 4.5% of the world's people live in the United States of America. Our global leadership relies on our ability to serve the world with the right approach to export controls and always, especially in technology, in our ability to sustain the trust of the rest of the world. Ultimately, I think people who take the time, if they take the time to watch or read about this hearing, may wonder, what is this all about? What are we at this table trying to do? What do these two letters AI really mean to them? Are we who are working in this industry trying to build machines that are better than people? Or are we trying to build machines that will help people become better? Emphatically, it is and needs to be the latter. Are we trying to build machines that will outperform people in all the jobs that they do today? Or are we trying to build machines that will help people pursue better jobs and even more interesting careers in the future? Indisputably, it needs to be the second, not the first. And I believe that is what we are and can do together. As somebody who's now spent almost 32 years in this industry, there are two things that always strike me. The first probably won't surprise you. Never underestimate what technology can do, how quickly it can move, what it can accomplish. But the second is one that I think is too seldom discussed, even though every day it stares us in the face. Never estimate what people can do. Never underestimate human ambition. Never underestimate what a person can do if given a better technology tool and the ability to learn how to put it to use. That's the story of this industry. It's the story of the country. It is, as you heard, the story of Sam Altman. Not everybody becomes a Sam Altman or a Satya Nadella or a Bill Gates. Everybody deserves the opportunity to try. Tonight across America, whether it's the attic of a house or the basement or just an everyday bedroom, there are kids with computers, with phones, with access to the internet, and now the ability to put AI to work. Let's invest in their education. Let's invest in the skills that the American public needs. Let's then invest in creating the future that the American public deserves. Thank you.
Well, thank you, witnesses, for your testimony. And I'll start off with the first round of questions and move down dais to our ranking member here. Thank you for your testimony. Certainly makes me sleep better at night, worried about Terminator and Skynet coming after us, knowing that you guys are behind the wheel. But in 5 words or less, start with you, Mr. Smith. What are the 5 words you need to see from our government to make sure we win this AI race?
More electricians. That's 2 words. Broader AI education.
And no using ChatGPT as a phone a friend.
Thank you. I would say that we need to focus on streamlining the ability to build large things.
Policies to help us run faster in the innovation race.
Allow supply chain sensible policy.
That was good. So what I hear there is something pretty similar to the races we've won before. Nuclear energy, for example, you know, the Germans and Austrians really led the innovation around that, but we won the race because we put a massive government effort collaborating with our universities and others to win that race. Space, you know, the Soviets put the first satellite up, put the first man in space, but we won the space race because we adopted a framework to ensure that we won. Aviation, automobiles, etc. So what I hear from you is you do need support from our government, but you also need the government to stay out of your way so you can innovate and win this race. How do we incentivize companies to do business here in America to make sure we win this race in America and America leads not just China, but other non-state actors too? I mean, I think that the scariest thing about AI from a capability standpoint is it doesn't have to be a state actor to win this race. It's not like nuclear energy. It's not like space technology. I mean, a non-state actor could just as easily win this race and wield more power than anyone else. So how do we encourage innovators, investment to happen here in America to ensure we win this race? Mr. Altman, you want to start?
We were honored to announce back in January Project Stargate, a $500 billion investment in United States infrastructure. That is now well underway, as I mentioned, getting to see it yesterday in Abilene. The first site was incredible. We need a lot more of that. We need certainty on the ability to build out this entire supply chain, build the data centers, permit the electricity. We'd love to bring chip production here, network production here, server rack production here. And I think the world does want to invest. We have a lot of global investment flowing into the US to do this. We also want to make sure that other countries are able to build with our technology, use our models, and sort of like be in our orbit and you know, use US diffusion of technology here. So That's really important. We need to make sure that the highest skilled researchers that want to come work at US companies can come here and do that. We need to make sure that companies like OpenAI and others have legal clarity on how we're going to operate. Of course, there will be rules. Of course, there need to be some guardrails. This is a very impactful technology, but we need to be able to be competitive globally. We need to be able to train. We need to be able to understand how we're going to offer services and sort of where the rules of the road are going to be. So clarity there, and I think an approach like the internet, which did lead to flourishing of this country in a very big way, we need that again.
Dr. Su.
I would add, I think computing is a foundation to all of this. We want to have more compute built in the U.S. by U.S. companies and ensure that we have a great environment for that. We want to ensure that our technology around the world is also used broadly and in the right ways. So I think the conversation about export controls and rules should just be simple, easy to follow, easy to enforce, and enable U.S. AI platforms to be the foundation, and then certainly the comments around bringing manufacturing back home and ensuring that we have the right talent base are all extremely important elements of that.
Are companies weighing doing business in AI in America versus China? Are the companies making that side-by-side comparison?
I think if you look across the world, there are countries and companies that will ask those questions. If it's hard to obtain U.S. technology, although U.S. technology is the best, if it's hard to obtain, then there's a hunger for AI, and they will choose what is available. And if China is available, that will certainly be an outcome that we would not like to see.
Well, I think I hear the words infrastructure, electricians, universities, regulatory framework, and I think those are things we can help with. I hear words like innovation and talent, and I hear Dr. Su run faster. Those aren't things the government can't manufacture talent. We can't make you run faster, but we can give you the tools to do that. And I think it's time that we create a framework so that you have the tools you need to win this race, because you're going to be the ones that win it, not us. Thank you for your testimony, and recommend Catwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to continue that same theme generally about competitiveness. Do we need NIST to set standards? If you could just yes or no, just go down the line.
I don't think we need it. It can be helpful.
Yes.
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 Okay. So in the context of what we're talking about here, we're really just talking, I don't know, Mr. Smith or Mr. Integrator or Dr. Su, the issue here is if we want to move fast, we want to create, just like with electricity, the standards by which we want to move fast. Here, I would just call it code for code is what we want, right? We want NIST to do something in the standard setting that will allow us to move much faster. Is that right, either Mr. Smith or Mr. Integrator?
What I would say is this. First of all, NIST is where standards go to be adopted, but it's not necessarily where they first go to be created. So we've got.
Thank you for that clarity.
Yeah.
We're talking about a industry, IEEE, lots of different organizations, industry input, and then they're adopted. So yes, let's clarify that.
Yeah.
Let's clarify that.
I think that's the way it works.
Yes, but you think we need to do that, particularly if the United States wants to lead?
We will need industry standards. We will need American adoption of standards. And you are right, we will need U.S. efforts to really ensure that the world buys into these standards.
Okay, Mr. Integrator?
I think it's important that when you're working with standards, what that allows for is a common vocabulary, which allows for acceleration. And so to the extent that we can step into that role and establish touch points where everyone can agree on specific things, that will lead to an acceleration both domestically and abroad.
And I don't know if, drilling down more on what you think those are, but in general, when I think about the internet and HTTP or HTML or any of the TCP/IP, we're talking about things that allowed us to move faster. And getting those standards established helped us do that. On the export issue, Mr. Integrator, the issue of cloud sources shouldn't be left out. If if we say, let's go with Malaysia, Malaysia is going to tell us that they can certify that there's no, diversion of these chips to Asia, to China, and we basically have a way that we can make sure that this is understood and monitored. Then we also want access, right? We want access by U.S. companies.
Yeah, I think Lisa's point was excellent, right? At the end of the day, the world wants to be able to build and deploy artificial intelligence in a very broad way. And if we, nature abhors a vacuum. If we do not step into that role, other technology will step in that role. If it is suboptimal, so be it. It's better to have something that is suboptimal than have nothing. And so that is what.
Well, we don't want a reoccurrence of a Huawei that develops faster and then has a government backdoor, and then we all have to raise opposition. I'm for a tech NATO. I'm for the 5 most sophisticated democracies and tech nations setting the rules of the road and saying this is who you should buy from. Don't buy from anybody else who has a government backdoor. Not a good idea. So that's how we get leverage. I'm not so hot on the president's tariff agenda for this very reason, because we're not building the alliances, we're creating the enemies. And what I want to do is get the supply chain here, get the semiconductor flow here, lower the cost, and go as fast as we can.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that's I don't think anybody's not going to agree with that, right? I think that's an excellent objective. I just think that what will happen beyond the 5 NATO companies is that there will be a demand for artificial intelligence, and they will proceed with what they can proceed with.
Dr. Su, what is your view of this about how we win, how we protect our objectives, but we're more aggressive on the export strategy?
Well, I think there is a clear recognition that we need an export strategy, and so having this conversation is very important. And from our perspective, the idea is to ensure that our allies, and frankly, I use allies in the very broadest sense, get access to the great American technology that we have with the appropriate controls in place. And I think you can do both. To your earlier comment, Ranking Member Cantwell, about the need to have U.S. technologies in those countries, I think those countries are actually very interested in doing that, because we do have the best technology today, and using that to really build this broad AI ecosystem is really our opportunity.
I agree. Thank you so much.
Let me ask you this, and this is to each of the 4 witnesses. In the race for AI, who's winning, America or China? If the answer is America, how close is China to us? And what do we do to make sure the answer remains America will win? Mr. Altman, we'll start with you.
It is our belief that the American models, including some models from our company, OpenAI and Google and others, are the best models in the world. It's very hard to say how far ahead we are, but I would say not a huge amount of time. And I think to continue that leadership position and the influence that comes with that, and all of the incredible benefits of the world using American technology products and services, the things that my colleagues have spoken about here, the need to win in infrastructure, sensible regulation that does not slow us down, this sort of spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship that I think is a uniquely American thing in the world. None of this is rocket science. We just need to keep doing the things that have worked for so long and not make a silly mistake.
Dr. Su?
I'll answer in the realm of chips. I would say America is ahead in chips today. We have the best AI accelerators in the world. I think China, although they have restrictions given their ability to use advanced technologies, the one thing that's very important for us all to remember is there are multiple ways to do things. Having the best chips is great, but even if you don't have the best chips, you can get a lot done. So I think this conversation about how far behind China is, they are certainly catching up, because there are many ways to do things. I think relative to what we can do, I will continue to say, really ensure that our spirit of innovation is allowed to work. And that is having very supportive government policies to do that, having very consistent policies, and allowing us to do what we do best, which is innovate at every layer of the stack.
Mr. Trader?
So I'll speak to it from the physical infrastructure and software stack to deliver that. America is ahead, but it is the Achilles heel from the perspective of the ability, as I started to better? Sorry about that. So the ability to build very large solutions to the computing infrastructure component of this is an area that we're going to struggle with from a permitting and building large projects to be able to deliver the power to allow those building artificial intelligence to continue to move as fast as they can in the race that we're in.
Mr. Smith?
I think the United States has a lead today in what is a close race and a race that will likely remain close. The number one factor that will define whether the United States or China wins this race is whose technology is most broadly adopted in the rest of the world. This is a global market, and it will be defined as technology markets typically are by network effects. 18% of the people in the world live in China, 4% live in the United States, 78% live somewhere else. The lesson from Huawei and 5G is whoever gets there first will be difficult to supplant. We need to export with the right kinds of controls. We need to win the trust of the rest of the world. We need to have the financial architecture that gets not only to the countries that are industrialized, but the nations, say, across Africa, where typically China and Huawei have done so well.
So some of my colleagues have made reference to standards as something that is desirable, and I will say standards is often code word for regulations, and indeed the EU's stifling standards concerning the internet is what killed tech in Europe. We are seeing now state legislatures mimicking the EU, such as California's SB 1047, which thankfully was overwhelmingly defeated, but would have created essentially a California DMV for AI model registration. How harmful would it be to winning the race for AI if America goes down the road of the EU and creates a heavy-handed prior approval government regulatory process for AI?
I think that would be disastrous. To give a more specific answer to your previous question, which I think touches on why it would be so bad, there are three key inputs to these AI systems. There's compute, all the infrastructure we're talking about. There's algorithms that we all do research on, and there's data. If you don't have any one of those, you cannot succeed in making the best models. And as Brad said, the way for America to influence the world here is to have the technology that people most want to use and most adopt. The world uses iPhones and Google and Microsoft products, and that's wonderful. Like, that's how we have our influence. We don't want that to stop happening. So systems that stop us on any of these areas, if we have rules about what data we can train on that are not competitive with the rest of the world, then things can fall apart. If we are not able to build the infrastructure, and particularly if we're not able to manufacture the chips in this country, the rules can fall apart. If we can't build the products that people want, that naturally win in the market, and I think people do want to use American products, we can make them the best. But if we're prevented from doing that, people will use a better product made from somebody else that doesn't have the sort of, that is not stymied in the same way. So I am nervous about standards being set too early. I'm totally fine, with the position some of my colleagues took, that standards, once the industry figures out what they should be, it's fine for them to be adopted by a government body and sort of made more official. But I believe the industry is moving quickly towards figuring out the right protocols and standards here, and we need the space to innovate and to move quickly.
So if each of you could briefly answer that question, because my time's expired, so I want to be respectful of that.
I agree with the comments that Sam put up.
I agree, and I would just say, and I think the point you're making is we have to be very careful not to have these pre-approval requirements, including at state levels, because that would really slow innovation in the country.
I think that a patchwork of regulatory overlays will cause friction in the ability to build and extend what we're doing.
Now, as I see it, the world has presented us with two paths. On one hand, the EU has chosen to regulate first and ask questions later. The GDPR is already limiting European access to the most capable AI models. On the other hand, China appears to be fast-tracking AI development, standing up large amounts of energy very quickly in an attempt to outcompete America. So I'd like to ask a few questions about how we can make sure we get the full benefit of this technology and accelerate its development. So first question, over the past year, we've seen many states, including California and Texas, consider their own AI frameworks, each one significantly burdensome in their own right. At the same time, our lead against China is shrinking to about only 6 months. So first of all, Mr. Altman, could you please sketch out what the world could look like if the U.S. were to have a patchwork regulatory framework and how that could impact our competitiveness?
I think it would be quite bad. I think it's very difficult to imagine us figuring out how to comply with 50 different sets of regulation. And in many of these states, there have been, dozens of different bills proposed that I understand several of which could be passed. That will slow us down at a time where I don't think it's in anyone's interest for us to slow down. One federal framework that is light touch, that we can understand and that lets us, move with the speed that this moment calls for seems important and fine. But the sort of every state takes a different approach here, I think would be quite burdensome and significantly impair our ability to do what we need to do, and hopefully you all want us to do too.
Does anyone disagree with Mr. Altman's assessment of a patchwork? Thank you. I have some questions about the infrastructure that is going to be necessary to lead and compete in AI. So my next questions are for our infrastructure providers, Mr. Smith and Mr. Is it Intrader or
That's correct.
Intrader? Thank you. Could you elaborate on how current permitting processes have impacted your ability to rapidly deploy AI infrastructure? The more specific you can be, the better.
So, quick comment on the patchwork, and then I'll dive in here, is the investment that we're making on the infrastructure side is enormous. And the idea that you can make an investment that could then become trapped in a jurisdiction that has a particular type of regulation that would not allow you to make full use of it is really very, very suboptimal, and makes the decision-making around infrastructure challenging. As far as the permitting goes, whenever this topic comes up, the discussion around permitting is excruciating. And it's excruciating from the ability to quickly build and to build large. And I think that is kind of from the data center forward, without even beginning the discussion from the data center back through the energy infrastructure that is necessary to be able to power these large investments at the scale that make them of relevance to moving artificial intelligence forward. I'm happy to spend more time kind of digging into more details, but probably do that directly.
Okay, and I'll look forward to that conversation, because I'm worried about Wyoming's very clean natural gas being something your industry's concerned about, because President Trump likes natural gas, but President Biden didn't. And if you build huge data centers and another president comes along who's anti-natural gas, that's a concern for you as you're deciding how to deploy capital. Mr. Smith, do you agree?
Generally, I do. I mean, I would say we need consistency across administrations in this country. We need to find more opportunities for bipartisan agreement. And I'll just highlight that in Cheyenne, where we've long had a data center complex, we do have backup generators that run on natural gas. So there are a variety of ways for us to put different energy supplies to good use.
Are you exploring small modular nuclear?
Yes, including with people in Wyoming.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, all of you? I'm just going to ask some quick questions, that this is a huge issue of national security, economic security relative to China, and we as America need to win in that regard. Very important. Everybody nodding their head. And then I know that it had been touched, but is the consensus among the witnesses that we are ahead right now, but is kind of tentative lead? What would be, very quickly, we'll start with you, Mr. Altman. What's your assessment on that? I know we've already talked about it. I just want to set the context for some of the questions.
Yeah, I believe we are leading the world right now. I believe we'll continue to do so. We want to make AI in the United States, and we want the whole world to get to benefit from that. I think that is the strongest thing for the United States. I think it's also the right thing to do for all the people of the world. And I really appreciate you all being with us here today, because I think we'll need your help, and everything you're saying, or almost everything you're saying, sounds great.
So as I ask this question, I'll ask if you guys think we're ahead, but then the key things when you say we need your help, what would, very succinctly, sometimes we're not so smart up here, what would the key things be that you would need from the U.S. government to help us maintain that lead and dominate this space, which is what I think we need to do? Mr. Altman, again, to you real quick on that.
We've talked a little bit about infrastructure, but I think we cannot overstate how important that is, and the ability to have that whole supply chain, or as much of it as possible, in the United States. The previous technological revolutions have also been about infrastructure and the supply chain, but AI is different in terms of the magnitude of resources that we need. So projects like Stargate that we're doing in the US, things like bringing chip manufacturing, certainly chip design to the US, permitting power quickly, like these are critical. If we don't get this right, I don't think anything else we do can help. On the model creation side, we've talked about the need for certainty on our ability to train and to have fair footing with the rest of the world to make sure we can remain competitive. The ability to offer products under a reasonable, fair, light touch regulatory framework where we can go win in the market, because the products will be so key to the sort of feedback loops and making them better and better, and the ability to deploy them quickly and win at the product level in addition to the model and infrastructure and data area is really quite important. The ability to bring the most talented people in the world here, the most talented researchers. We have a ton in the United States. There's more out in the world. We should try to get them all here, improving models here. I think those are some of the specifics.
Good, that's very helpful. Let me ask Mr. Smith, two other ones that I want to touch on. I agree fully with Senator Lummis. I'm sure Senator Cruz has the same view. One of our comparative advantages over China, in my view, has to be energy. All of the above energy. Hopefully you've seen in Alaska, we have a very large-scale LNG project that I think we're going to get off the ground here. We've been working on for a long time. We will have 100-year supply of natural gas. So we want you guys all to come up to Alaska with your data centers. We got cold weather. We got a lot of cold weather. We got gas. We got land. We got water. We got it all.
That's very compelling.
So yeah, come on up. When this project's done, 100-year gas supply, a little colder than Texas. So two questions that relate to our comparative advantage. Mr. Smith, and then any others who want to jump in. Energy, do we think that is? I think it is. And then second, it's, I think, somewhat of a disadvantage. It frustrates me. Maybe you guys don't see this. We've had American finance companies, venture capital firms, banks, others that remarkably, all the opportunities we have in America are helping fund some of these projects in China. I've been a real staunch opponent of Americans who have opportunities to invest in other places, investing in Chinese AI, Chinese quantum, because we all know they're going to use that to help make their military more lethal. I mean, that's what they do. I was reading recently about this Benchmark Capital. I don't know these guys, but they evidently did a $75 million round for some an AI company in in China. Is that another problem as well, Mr. Smith? Advantage Energy problem, American companies financing our competition.
I would connect three things: energy, people, and access to capital. The U.S. has huge resources in energy, but never underestimate the ability of China to build a lot of electrical power plants, maybe more and faster than any other country. So we are better off going into that with the mindset that we have to keep up and not take anything for granted. But then I would say the number one comparative advantage of the United States throughout the 50 years that have defined digital technology has been bringing the world's best people to our country and giving them access to venture capital. And we should continue to burnish both of those. And I think you're right to ask, where else is venture capital going? I'll just say this: if we can keep bringing the best people to the United States, and if we can keep educating the best people in the United States, I believe the money will be here to enable them to succeed. But let's make sure we're continuing to bring the best people in the world and giving them the opportunity to build great companies here in the United States.
And American venture capital funds funding Chinese AI, is that in our national interest?
I think there's a really good question about whether it is, and I recognize that you all are quite rightly focused on that. I'll just keep saying, bring the people here, they will have access to the money, and we will outcompete the world.
Great, thank you.
All right, so a question that I have spent a lot of time talking to business leaders, CEOs in the tech space, AI. And one question that I've asked that I get different answers on, and I'm curious what the four of you say. How big a deal was DeepSeek? Is it a major, seismic, shocking development from China? Is it not that big a deal? Is it somewhere in between? And what's coming next? And let's, each of the four of you.
Not a huge deal. There are two things about DeepSeek. One is that they made a good open source model, and the other is that they made a consumer app that, for the first time, briefly surpassed ChatGPT as the most downloaded AI tool, maybe the most downloaded app overall. There are going to be a lot of good open source models, and clearly there are incredibly talented people working at DeepSeek doing great research, so I'd expect more great models to come. Hopefully also us and some of our colleagues will put out great models too. On the consumer app, I think if the DeepSeek consumer app looked like it was going to beat ChatGPT and our American colleagues' apps as sort of the default AI systems that people use, that would be bad. But that does not currently look to us like what's happening.
I would say it's somewhere in between, Chairman Cruz. When you think about what we learned is, there are different ways of doing things. So we have lots of incredibly innovative people in the United States. American models are clearly the best by far. However, when you have constraints that are placed, there are other ways of doing things, and I think we learned a few things in the process. I think the open source nature of DeepSeek was one of the things that probably was most impactful in just terms of how much can be done in an open source, type of model and open ecosystem. But clearly, the United States is leading, and we need to continue, as we said, to accelerate innovation and adoption, as you started this hearing with.
I think DeepSeek did a lot of things. One of the things that it did was it sort of raised the specter of China's AI capability to a much broader audience than was perhaps focused on it prior to that, right? And so you saw that kind of reverberate through the financial markets. You saw like a broad-based reaction, and suddenly everyone knows what DeepSeek is, and the fact that China is not theoretically in the race for AI dominance, but actually is very much a formidable competitor. And so, it was a starting gun in some ways for the broader population and kind of maybe the broader consciousness of the fact that this is not a fait accompli, and that we're going to have to work as America together to kind of propel our solutions forward. And so I think that was one of the lasting impacts that we will see from that.
I would say, like Lisa, that somewhere in between. It wasn't shocking. I mean, it was one of a number of startups that we were following in China that we saw as having the potential to be innovative in this space. I do think there's a really interesting and important point that constraints encourage innovation in other ways. And I just think one of the interesting facts about DeepSeek is that of their, say, 200 or more employees, that was their size when they released these models, almost all of their employees, by design, were 4 years or less out of university. They wanted to hire people that would not bring to their work traditional ways of doing things.
So the kids are taking over the world?
They do, every generation.
Related to that, were you finished with that, Mr. Smith? Related to that, we talked at the outset about the AI diffusion rule being rescinded, which I'm glad. I think it was a bad rule. I think it was overly complex. I think it put on a number of our trading partners unfair restrictions. And so I'm glad the president is rescinding it. That doesn't necessarily mean that there should be no restrictions, and there are a variety of views on what the rules should be concerning AI diffusion. NVIDIA has argued that we want American chips everywhere, even in China. Others have argued that we want to restrict at least the most advanced processors. I'm curious, each of the four of you, what do you think the rule should be, if anything, is to replace the AI diffusion rule? And Mr. Altman, we'll start with you.
I also was glad to see that rescinded. I agree there will need to be some constraints, but I think if the sort of mental model is winning diffusion instead of stopping diffusion, that directionally seems right. That doesn't mean there's no guardrails. It doesn't mean we say, like, we're going to go build a bigger data center in some other country than the US. Our intention is to build our biggest and best data centers in the US, do training in the US, build the models here, have our core research here. But then we do want to build inference centers with our partners around the world, and we've been working with the US government on that. I think that'll be good. To this point, that influence comes from people adopting US products and services up and down the stack, maybe most obviously if they're using ChatGPT versus DeepSeek, but also if they're using US chips and US data center technology and all of the amazing stuff Microsoft does. That's a win for us, and I think we should embrace that, but make sure that, you know, the most critical stuff, the creation of these models that will be so impactful, that should still happen here. Dr. Su?
I think we would totally agree with the concept that some restrictions are necessary. This is a matter of national security as much as it is about AI diffusion. That being the case, we were happy to see the rescinding as well. And, you know, we view this as an opportunity to really simplify, right? At the end of the day, you know, we've talked about the need to drive widespread adoption of our technology and our ecosystem. You know, simple rules that can be, you know, easily applied, that really allow our allies to, you know, protect our technology while still utilizing the best that the United States has to offer, I think is a good start in terms of where we're going. And, you know, again, this is an area where I think the devil's in the details, and it requires a lot of balance. And so from an industry standpoint, you know, it's our job to put on the broader hat and work hand in hand with the administration and Congress to, you know, make our best recommendations so that it is a policy that has some stability as we go forward as well.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Trader.
So I'll echo what Sam and Lisa said, but, you know, national security is paramount. And then once you've addressed the limitations around national security, the opportunity to work with regulators to put together a regulatory framework beyond that makes a lot of sense. And the diffusion rule didn't allow us that opportunity to participate fully enough to feel like we're going to come away with what would be an optimal outcome at this point.
Mr. Smith?
I think we've all discussed the right recipe. Simplify, eliminate these tier 2 quantitative restrictions that undermine confidence in access to American technology, but enable even the most advanced GPUs the country has to be exported to data centers that are run by a trusted provider, that meet certain security standards. That means both physical and cybersecurity standards, that there is protection against diversion of the chips, and there are precautions against certain uses. And that means two things. One is that there are controls in place to ensure that, say, the PLA, the Chinese military, isn't accessing and using these advanced models or advanced chips in a data center, regardless of the country that it's in. And there are certain harmful uses that one should want to prohibit and preclude, like using a model to create the next pandemic, a biological weapon, a nuclear weapon. And I think that there is an approach that is coming together that can be retained and can move forward and that strikes the right balance.
Okay, final question for each of you. Would you support a 10-year learning period on states issuing comprehensive AI regulation or some form of federal preemption to create an even playing field for AI developers and deployers?
I'm not sure what a 10-year learning period means, but I think having one federal approach focused on light touch and an even playing field sounds great to me.
Aligned federal approach with really thoughtful regulation would be very, very much appreciated.
I agree with both of my colleagues.
Yeah, I think that builds obviously on the op-ed that you and Senator Graham published last year. And I think giving the country time, your analogy, your example was this work for the internet. There's a lot of details that need to be hammered out. But giving the federal government the ability to lead, especially in areas around product safety and pre-release reviews and the like, would help this industry grow.
Well, I want to thank each of the witnesses. This was a very interesting hearing. It was informative. These issues matter. You saw a great deal of interest on both sides of the aisle in this topic. And so I appreciate each of you are very busy and doing a lot of things, and I appreciate your being here today. Senators will have until the close of business on Thursday, May 15th, to submit questions for the record, and the witnesses will have until the end of the day on Thursday, May 29th, to respond to those questions. And with that, that concludes today's hearing. The committee stands adjourned.
偷偷告诉大家，我最近发现了新法宝 Royal Face 逆时奇迹系列，它有活肤露、全效精华，还有精华霜。尤其我皮肤比较偏干，所以我非常的注重保湿。保湿做得好，肌肤自然烹饪。提亮肤色更年轻，抚平皱纹超有感，而且气色变好。用心保养，每天都更美一点。美吧。